You're listening to The Stephen Tauriello Show, building a platform of liberty for people in search of truth with a dash of hope and a life worth living. The Stephen Tauriello Show. And now, here's Stephen.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the show. As always, thank you for tuning in. And as always, we got a lot to talk about. We got a lot to talk about. A lot. So, look, in the last time we talked, a lot of stuff has happened. Affirmative action has officially been abolished, I guess you could say, in college admissions. So colleges are no longer allowed to use race as a deciding factor to get into college. I thought we were over this like years and years ago, like judging people off the color of their skin. Apparently not. And it's actually pretty bad. So leave it up to the leftist Democrats to essentially bring back segregation and racism, because that's pretty much what this is. If you're not sure what affirmative action is where they literally look at the color of your skin before any merit-based decision-making. So you could see how that may be a problem. I certainly can. And apparently 64% of Americans can as well, because there was a poll put out by NPR or the Associated Press that says over 63% of Americans unilaterally say affirmative action is no-go when it comes to college admission. I think affirmative action just needs to go. It's literally racism. I mean, you're literally judging people off the color of their skin and not the content of their character. We need to go back to a merit-based system with everything. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, but I just don't care the skin color of my pilot, just so long as he gets me to my destination safe. That is it. And that's how it's always been since the dawn of man. You know, the better hunter would be the one leading the pack to go hunt down the woolly mammoth. This is how it was. I mean, everything was merit-based. If the male hunter wasn't very good or was clumsy or always fell down on his own spear, they would probably leave him behind and have him gather berries with the women. This was a merit from the dawn of time, from the day man walked on two feet. We have used a merit-based system. Now, like I said, leave it to the leftist Democrats to essentially bring back racism into our society. And just like always, the Republicans had to abolish it, just like we did back in the Civil War. We fought the Democrats and the Confederate Army to abolish slavery, and Democrats fought to keep slavery, and we won. We won, and they got so pissed they created the KKK, and then when we whooped their ass in the KKK, they got so pissed they filibustered the civil rights. And look, it's been nonstop for the Democrat Party. They're always the party of racism. They're always the party of identity politics. And they're always the party that hates this country. They hate the Constitution. They hate everything about it. That's why they want to tear down statues. They want to change our history like the 1619 Project. This is what they do. There's a slew of evidence that you can see. It's in the open. No, it's not hiding. All you have to do is look it up. That the Democrat Party is the party of racism. It is not. It's not a conspiracy. It's a fact. They are. They always have been. Like I said, all the way from the Civil War, all the way to BLM. They're always the party of racism, identity politics, and so on and so forth. I had actually a pretty interesting conversation today with a couple of my colleagues. One is Puerto Rican, from Puerto Rican descent. He was born here in the United States. Both of his parents migrated here. And it's funny because his mom she don't really speak English, and he doesn't know Spanish. So I always mess with him about it. I'm like, dude, how the hell did you grow up not understanding what your mother was saying. So he says he understands it, he just can't speak it that well. Anyways, I was talking to him and a black colleague of mine, and we were all talking about how crazy society is and how the entire system is rigged against the people. We all know this, folks, and mind you, one is an independent, the Puerto Rican. I guess you could say he's Puerto Rican. To me, he's just a guy from New Jersey. It's nothing about him's Puerto Rican. And my black colleague, my friend, he is a Democrat. And all of us sat there and talked about how the system is essentially against the people and how the system is rigged to keep the middle class and the lower class in a ditch, essentially, just in this revolving door, in this matrix, essentially. And the entire system is rigged. All of our money goes to almost all corruption. It's not very hard to see when you're willing to just open your eyes, when you're willing to look. When you're driving down the road and you're hitting pothole after pothole after pothole, and you're like, man, can they not fix these roads? Like, do they not have the money to do it? And then you think about it, you're like, I know they have the money. Like, because they just spent $55 million on City Hall or a new building for the FBI or whatever it is. Like, we all see these things every day. Perfect example. I was reading statistics about the homeless crisis in America, which has obviously got drastically worse in the Bidenomics era. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. But I started thinking about, you could solve 50% of the homeless problem with $10 billion. $10 billion, I know it sounds like a lot, right? But think about it. You could fix half of the homeless issue. Like, you could fix half of the problems, which means you could put everybody up in some kind of housing on the outskirts of cities with showers, food, all what they need. And another interesting statistic I didn't know, but did you know 44% of homeless people actually have a job? That's pretty interesting. So anyways, I started thinking, I'm like, $10 billion to fix half of the homeless problem. Folks, we just spent $44 billion over to Ukraine. Like, and nobody even asks a question. Like, nobody even asks, like, okay, that's $44 billion. Okay, yeah, we should do that. Like, we have $44 billion to send to war in Ukraine, but we don't have $10 billion to fix half of our homeless problem here in America. These are the things that you will see once you're willing to look. And look, a lot of people do see it. And regardless of what side you're on, left or right, these are problems that everybody agrees are problems. The homeless problem in our country is a problem. The southern border is a problem. The middle class being squeezed and crushed is a problem. Inflation is a problem. And affordable housing is a problem. Healthcare is a problem. We see all these problems, no matter what side you're on. Nobody's denying that they're issues. It's the solutions that we don't agree on. But if you really break it down to its purest form, and you just say, look, stick to the facts, $10 billion will fix 50% of the homeless problem, the homeless crisis in America. And that's easy. Okay, where's the $10 billion? Let's start on this. And then we just start. And then we start working out how we're going to get there. Whether, like I said, whether that's just taking their tent cities out from the city and putting them on the outskirts. You know who the only person that's actually talking about the homeless problem in America? The one and only person out of all the candidates, out of all of them, Donald Trump. Donald Trump is the only person talking about the homeless problem in our country. In fact, he's pretty much nailed everything. I don't know if you know this, but he puts out these little 10-minute videos or 5-minute videos about his proposed plan when he gets reelected. And he's the only one doing this, actually coming up with viable solutions. You may not agree with him, but at least he's talking about it. This is what I'm saying. This is why Donald Trump was such a success in his 2016 to 2019. I say 2019 because 2020, that was the pandemic. I don't count that because that was something we never seen before. 100 years, it was a disaster. And then so it doesn't really count. Then Biden takes over and then exacerbates it. I mean, it just absolutely shoots it through the ceiling as far as deaths and the economy, debt, deficit spending, everything. I mean, it is no mystery why things are so bad right now. It's because Joe Biden. Anyways, we're going to get into that too. Like I said, so much stuff to talk about, but I wanted to share that conversation that I had with my colleagues today. And what they both said was, my buddy was talking about, why is abortion a problem for the country? Like, abortion shouldn't have anything to do with how we're going to succeed in an economy as a country. And I said, I agree. And he's pro-choice. He says what a woman gets to decide what happens to her body. And I said, yeah, I agree. And then I said my piece where I said, well, at what point in time is the baby relevant? And so there's how the conversation starts. And then in the end, we both kind of agreed, like, yeah, like you can have abortion, I guess, but just put a time limit on it. Whenever there's a heartbeat or at whatever point you think that baby is a baby, that's where the stopping point needs to be. But this whole abortion up to the last moments of the baby's birth, and in some cases, these people want abortion even after birth. I mean, they literally want the baby to lay on the table and die without getting any kind of care. Like, it's reaching like sick levels. And so, like I told him, not everything has a black and white answer. Not everything is so, there's not a perfect answer for everything, but there is a solution for everything. And so you got to compromise. And that's exactly what America used to be about. But now it's all or nothing. Republicans want to ban abortion no matter what. We're talking since day one, since conception, which is what, a week, 2 weeks? I mean, the mom doesn't even know she's pregnant yet. So that seems kind of a little ridiculous, right? I mean, well, I agree. I agree with both sides. Like, a woman should have say over what happens to her body. But then I also agree, like, at some point, that embryo turns into a baby. It's not just like a pimple on the side of your face that you get to just squish, but it's like it's a real living, breathing thing. And so there has to be some kind of compromise. We're just reaching crazy levels of insanity right now. Everything's just so extreme. It's either you're getting pulled all the way to the left or you're getting pulled all the way to the right. And really what needs to happen, I think a healthy country would be just right in the middle. But in order to do that, you have to accept fundamental truths, which is something the left really lacks. And I'm not saying that just because I'm a conservative and I'm on the right. I'm saying they really don't believe in in the fundamental truths of humanity, like of society. Like, they really believe that a man can get pregnant. And I'm sorry, folks, it's just not true. Like, they live in this alternate reality, and instead of just accepting the truth and dealing with reality, they want everybody else to join them in their crazy reality. And so it's not enough just to accept it. You have to celebrate it. So it's not enough just to accept their insanity, like, okay, you want to dress like a woman and you want to say men can get pregnant, okay. But then for them to go out and be like, yeah, well, I want you to say it and I want you to believe it. And if you don't, you're a bigot or a racist. It's like, okay, now you've gone too far. You see? This is how this is. We got to find common ground in the middle. Have to. And that's just not happening because one side, like I said, folks, one side cannot grasp basic reality. They cannot, they reject reality and substitute their own kind of thing. Like, there's no such thing as gender. There's no such thing as a man and a woman. To the point to where you have Supreme Court justices not able to define what a woman is. You have Matt Walsh that goes out and asks this basic question, what is a woman? And it's so hard for these people to answer. If you cannot answer the question, what is a woman, in 3 or 4 seconds, in a couple sentences, then I'm sorry, but you are struggling with reality. You are struggling with the truth. And so this is what brings us to this madness we find ourselves in today, is how do you handle something like that? Like, how do you handle somebody that's being completely unreasonable and irrational and completely unglued? Okay, like, not in the same realm. I don't know. I guess you would say you would have to just push forward with whatever you think is the right thing to do. So, like, you would have to push forward with a 6 or 8 week abortion ban, which means you can get an abortion up to 8 weeks. It's a heartbeat bill. It's something similar to what Ron DeSantis signed here in the state of Florida. I'm okay with that. Personally, I think it may be a little bit too early. I think 6 weeks, I mean, I was talking to my wife about this. Do women even know they're pregnant at 6 weeks? I mean, it's kind of pushing it. They can. I mean, it's only 2 weeks after their menstrual cycle that they, so it's right there. I mean, so I think maybe give it a little bit more time, maybe like a 10 week, maybe 10 weeks or 8 weeks, something like that, but definitely a compromise in the middle. But these people, because they don't accept reality, they're all or nothing. It's like, no, you cannot touch a woman's body. It is her body, her choice. Unless, and this is what happens when you have to do some real mental gymnastics in order to be on the left. In order to be in these people's cult, you have to be able to really reject truth. And what I mean by that is, it's easy to call them out on this because when they say, oh, it's my body, my choice, unless that choice is an experimental vaccine that you want to put into my body. Like, so, and that's where they kind of get caught up. It's like, oh, my body, my choice, unless it's this, unless it's vaccines. Yeah, I don't know. You can't be my body, my choice, and then support vaccine mandates. Just kind of, so no compromise. That's what happens when you have no compromise. So you should say, it's my body, my choice, but there's also a baby inside my body that doesn't have a choice. And so you kind of have to speak on their behalf, which means you can't talk. They can't talk. Okay, the baby can't say please, no. And I would imagine if they could talk and they actually knew what was going on, they would say, please do not kill me. I can't imagine any baby saying, yeah, go ahead and wipe me out. I'm good. There's actually like synapses firing inside their brain. They're thinking, there's personalities being created. There's already emotions being in play when, so that's what I'm talking about. It's like, okay, at what point does the baby come into play? Like, at what point does the mom have to start making the choice for two people and not just her? That's what I'm talking about. And of course, in the conversation, the Democrat was, he didn't even interject his opinion. And I'm sure his opinion was my body, my choice, because in order to be in the Democrat Party, you got to support the Democrat. It's the party comes first, regardless of anything. It's doublethink. In order for you to be in their club, in order for you to be a Democrat, you have to accept the narrative, no matter what that narrative is. So if the Democrats say that abortion is fine all the way up to 9 months, you have to be okay with that. That's not me. Certainly Republicans have that in the Republican Party too, when things like with war and the military. Like, if the government, if there's a country out there that's messing with another ally or messing with another country, the United States needs to step up and bomb the hell out of that country. Not so much for me. That's not me. I don't agree with the Ukraine war. I don't know how long you've listened. If this is your first time listening, I'm very anti-war, period. I don't like people dying. And I think the loss of human life is extremely sad. We live this life one time. We have one shot at life. We are on this planet, for not that long when in the greater scheme of things, and all the experiences we get to have that God has granted us to have, and God has allowed us to have, all the sights and all the memories and all the smells and tastes and laughters and cry, and sadness and tears, all that is we're lucky to experience, and we don't even get to experience it for that long. I think I read an article where they said we have a 1 in like 4 billion chance of even being here talking to you right now. That to me is astronomical numbers, because you have the probability of how many sperms are going through, and then the sperm finds the egg, and then here you are. So it's like, I just feel like war is just such a waste of life. Now, if it's war in a matter of self-defense, which means if we got to go kick another country's ass because that country's loading up the nukes and getting ready to wipe us out, then yeah, I would say yeah. But if you look at the past 30 years, the wars that we've been in, the last 40 years, the last real war that we were actually, we should have been in was probably World War II. I'm not a fan of Vietnam. That was a debacle. And so on and so forth. These wars are started by the military-industrial complex and politicians. Mind you, these people have nothing in common with the people that actually have to go fight and die for these wars. And so I just essentially don't like war. I don't like anybody dying. I think it's a waste. Unless it's in self-defense. Then you got to do what you got to do. But so, like I said, Republicans certainly have their kind of cult-like behavior too. It's on both sides. But the best place we need to be is right in the middle. That's it. Agree to disagree like we used to. America used to be compromising. We used to be in the middle. We never had all this hatred for one another. If like your guy didn't win in the election, you didn't hate the other side for it. Or if your guy won the election, you didn't hate the other side. It's like, what they did with Donald Trump. This is why I say all this stuff really started back in 2016 when Donald Trump won the election. I tell my listeners all the time, guys, Donald Trump was never supposed to win that election. Never. It was the entire establishment swamp was caught off guard. They did not expect him to win at all. At all. And the American people stepped up and cocked him right in the mouth. And just jacked the establishment right in the side of the mouth, man. Punched him right in the nose. And they stumbled. They stumbled back a little bit. They were like, whoa, like this is all happening really fast. And then they started getting it together. They're like, okay, the eyes stopped watering, kind of like when you get hit in the nose, your eyes start watering. That's what happened. So their eyes stopped watering. They got their thoughts together, and they just came back and started swinging on Donald Trump, man, with investigations, impeachments. And then the worst thing is when the government started colluding with the media, and the government and the media were all using our intelligence agencies and the police, well, essentially the guys with badges and guns, the justice system. So you got a bad situation when you have a corrupt system, a government system, attaching itself to a very, very powerful and persuasive media, and both of them using the levers of justice in order to get their desired outcome. And their desired outcome was for Donald Trump not to be president, was to impeach Donald Trump, overthrow his seat, and then deal with Mike Pence. Because obviously, as you could see, Mike Pence is very, very much controlled opposition. And I even would say they would probably impeach Mike Pence too. That's what would have happened, and then it would have went to Nancy Pelosi. I don't think they really thought that far. All they knew was they had to get rid of this guy. And it's really upsetting, because the guy really did give this country and the country's people the best times this country has seen in decades. Really, really, on paper, on graph, no matter how you look at it. I'm telling you, folks, I promise you, I've looked this data up countless times, through and through. I live, eat, and breathe the news. And I'm telling you, I've been studying, researching Trump's economy and America during Trump's presidency. And there is no doubt that this country was in its best shape it has been in decades. Now, was it perfect? No. But when you really, really get down to the grassroots of the thing, when you get down to the nitty-gritty, You had no new wars. That's a plus. You had the middle class growing. You had the lower class prospering. More people were getting off food stamps. You had minority communities. You had the minority population getting jobs, more jobs. You had the wages increasing for the minority population. Blacks and Hispanics were making more money. You had the quality of life all around in America was at its peak. Groceries were affordable. Gas and fuel was affordable to get back and forth to work. I know a lot of people say, oh, it's only $1.50 more, $2 more. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, you're talking about filling your tank up for $15, $18, $20 versus $45, $50. That $15, $20, $25 is, that's a dinner for two. Or if you want to think of it, you do that for 2 weeks, you save $50, $60, that's a trip to the movies with your family. And so this is the kind of things that Donald Trump was bringing this country. And so it boggles my mind how the American people, I'm not saying conservative Republicans, I'm talking about the people specifically that hate Trump. It boggles my mind. I understand why the establishment hates Trump. I understand why the military industrial complex hates Trump. I understand why the other politicians hate Trump, like Liz Cheney, like what we're going to get into in a minute. I'm going to play some of her, or I might do it next episode. I understand why the system, the establishment, Washington swamp would hate Trump. But I, for the life of me, cannot understand why somebody who was doing better, their quality of life was better, everything was cheaper. I just don't understand how someone like that could hate Trump. Donald Trump, they have no reason to hate Donald Trump. This is what's mind-boggling to me. And if you want to sit there and say, what they'll most likely say is, yeah, but he's a liar, and then they start getting really extreme, like he's a traitor, and he needs to be tried for treason. It's like, whoa. I mean, the rhetoric, you could tell what it is they get extremely emotional about it. And the reason why they're emotional is they tied Donald Trump. This is what the media does. They're very effective with propaganda. They tied Donald Trump's name, Donald Trump's image, with hatred. And the media did that by using propaganda, by saying these narratives and pushing these narratives so hard for so long that when you lie long enough, people start to believe the lie. And so out of nowhere, right out the beginning, it's like, oh, well, you have to hate Donald Trump. People were like, why? I mean, I just bought my first house. They're like, oh, no, but you have to hate him because, he said that you got to just grab women by the peas. It's like, whoa, okay. I mean, I guess. I mean, but doesn't, a lot of guys talk like that in the locker room? Yeah, but, that's very unpresidential. It's like, okay. And then they just go on to something else. It's like, you got to hate Donald Trump. It's like, but why? Well, it's because he colluded with Russia. He's a Russian agent. It's like, whoa, really? I mean, okay, but I mean, maybe you should check into it for sure. Yeah, I would say investigate and maybe get down to that. That's possible. And then when they get done in the end, it's like, wait a minute. So the whole thing was a lie that the government created? And then now here we are. And so I just find it very difficult to believe why anybody that's in the middle or lower class would hate Donald Trump. Not just, okay, you want to hate him, that's fine. But to sit there and say that Joe Biden is better? I don't know, man. I don't think so. And the Biden administration is going to have a real hard time convincing the people with this Bidenomics stuff. Because, man, do the people get it. The people get it all across the country. I'm not saying the leftists get it. I'm not saying the real emotionally irrational people get it, but I'm saying the majority of people definitely get it. Like, they see it. Like the stark contrast between a Donald Trump administration and Joe Biden administration. There is no way, without absolutely epic levels of propaganda, are they going to be able to convince regular Americans, people that are struggling right now, which is everybody except for the rich. But they're going to have a hard time convincing those people that they should vote against their best interest. They should vote to continue on this pain and misery they've been feeling for 2.5 years. I mean, look, Biden could turn this economy, could turn around, and this is what they do, folks. They try and button everything up 6 months, a year before the election. We're officially in election time now, ladies and gentlemen. It's on. It has started. It is official. I am calling it. It is June 29th, 2023. And election time has officially started. And so they're going to have to epic levels of propaganda in order to get people to believe that this is better than what they had with Donald Trump. And they're never going to be able to do it. So I am just shocked that they even came out with this campaign message, Bidenomics. And supposedly it wasn't even Biden's team that came up with it. He actually says right here that he got it from the media.
So, sir, you said you didn't know what the hell Bidenomics is. Sir, can you tell us today what it is?
Sure it is, because the first time I heard it used was by you guys to press.
Your economic team is calling it Bidenomics.
Oh, wait, let's get it straight. First time was used in the Wall Street Journal. Okay? I don't go around beating my chest Bidenomics. So the press started calling it Bidenomics.
So if you want to know if there's this insane connection and collusion between the media and the White House, I think you have your answer. Anyways, yeah, they're just going to have a hard time trying to convince the people that his plan is working. This is not working. And I have some audio here. I can even prove it. So here is a audio clip from a CNN analyst, economic analyst, talking about the Washington Post article that released, saying essentially how the rich have gotten richer and the poor have gotten poorer under Joe Biden's economy. Here, check this out.
If you look at how much incomes rose, or I should say earnings rose last year relative to how much people are actually shelling out on higher prices, at the very bottom of the income distribution, poor people are coming out way behind. Their bills went up way more than their actual earnings went up. At the top end of the income distribution, it's the opposite. People who are higher income households have found that their total earnings have vastly outpaced inflation. And that's a little bit to the contrary of the narrative you've been hearing from the White House and many economists. And that's partly because people are looking at the percent change in hourly wage growth, which is a reasonable thing to look at. But the problem is that lower income households tend to work fewer hours. They're living paycheck to paycheck. They're buying different things than higher income households. They spend much more of their consumption on, for example, gas and groceries, which have had the highest price increases over the past year. So when you net it all out, when you look at how much people are spending, when you look at what they're spending on, when you look at how many hours they are working, the consequence is that poor people are falling behind, at least if you're looking at earnings. Now, they've gotten a lot of cash from the government, which has made up much of the difference. But they're falling behind. Rich people are pulling ahead.
Yep. So again, they're going to have a hard time convincing regular middle-class America. And I'm not talking about, like, Joe Biden can lie with the best of them. The guy cannot read a transcript. He cannot read a teleprompter. He cannot talk. But when it comes to lies, this man never stumbles on a lie. Doesn't anybody else find that absolutely astonishing? How this guy, when it comes to speaking about anything else, he cannot do it. He has gaffes after gaffe after gaffe. But when he's about ready to tell a lie, he tells it as smooth as possible. It's like he's 40 years younger. It's so wild. And you can always tell when he's about ready to lie because he'll say things like, no joke, this is the truth, I'm not being hyperbolic, seriously. So he has to assure the people listening that he has to assure the people he's about ready to lie to that he's being sincere. And that's how you can tell he's lying. And that's actually a tell sign of anybody that's lying. I actually read that in an FBI training manual on how to detect liars using body language and speech. So anyways, to piggyback on what she said, the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer, during the pandemic, billionaire wealth increased to a staggering level, with a new billionaire being created every 30 hours over the past 2 years. And this is per a report from the Oxfam. It was an Oxfam study that was released. So on Sunday, anti-poverty organization Oxfam released a report that found that from March 2020 to March 2022, some 573 people became new billionaires. Meanwhile, this year alone, Oxfam expects more than 260 million people to be pushed into extreme poverty or living on less than $1.90 per day. Worldwide, a rate of 1 million people falling into extreme poverty every 33 hours. So what they're going to try and do, so I'll call it out, what they're going to try and do is they're going to say, yeah, everything's really bad, the economy sucks and everything else sucks, but it sucks everywhere. It's like this throughout the whole world. So it's not just me. Ladies and gentlemen, you ever heard of the phrase when America sneezes, the rest of the world has a cold? So essentially, when we're doing good, the world is doing good. That's how powerful our country is. So when we're doing bad, the entire world is doing bad. And so but what sucks is you're going to have a lot of regular American people that don't really know all this stuff, that they have their head in the sand, the people not paying attention, which is who this podcast is for those people that just want the truth or just want to know what is happening. Those people aren't going to get it. They're going to be like, yeah, that sounds about right. I mean, it is bad in Germany. It is bad in Switzerland. And they're not going to actually look up the numbers. They're not going to be able to understand when they're being propagandized. They're just not going to be able to tell. And unfortunately, it works. It works. I'm telling you, this environment, this relationship that the Washington establishment corrupt swamp has created with the media is absolutely, it's crazy. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, it is literally like the media is running our country. I mean, because the media says something and the White House just piggybacks right off of it, just repeats it. So the reason why I say that is Bidenomics. That campaign message was not created by the White House campaign, was not created by the Biden campaign. That message, that narrative was created by the media. And so you can expect that the media has been working on this for him for months. And this is where they feel, I'm sure after millions of dollars spent on polling and questionnaires and surveys, they're like, yeah, you could, if you run on Bidenomics, if you run on the economy, we can just lie, say the economy's either doing really good by inflating the numbers or juicing the numbers. And we can also say it's not your fault. It's the whole world is doing bad. And this is why they picked the economy, because it's the easiest thing they can lie about. But what I think is going to happen is these scandals, these Biden scandals are going to catch up to Joe Biden when the time comes, this time in 2024. I think this mountain of evidence is going to be so massive that there's no way people are going to be able to honestly vote for Joe Biden. So either two things. They're going to try and skirt him through like they did in 2020 by hiding him or coming up with some kind of massive excuse like, who knows, maybe even create another pandemic. I wouldn't put it past him. And you and I both know you wouldn't put it past him. If after seeing the stuff we've experienced the last 2.5 years from this machine, and how desperate they are to keep Donald Trump from being elected, I would not be surprised if they did create another pandemic purposely. If they did not seriously and release a contagion into the population just to keep Donald Trump from being president. Do not put it past these people folks. Do not, because they would in a heartbeat. Trust me. And so I think two things. They're either going to do something like that, or they're going to drop Joe Biden like it's hot. And they're going to have to put up someone like Gavin Newsom or, heaven forbid, Michelle Obama. But I don't even think if Michelle Obama came in, it was going to work. I think people are just so over these policies. They are so done with them. They see right through it because they listen to shows like this. They listen to other conservative media. Conservative media, podcasting and YouTubers and Rumble videos, like conservative media has skyrocketed while simultaneously the viewers are shrinking on CNN and MSNBC, the left-wing media. They're losing viewers and conservative media is gaining viewers. And so that's a great thing. That means people are actually starting to come to the side and see the truth. And it's not because we persuade them with lies and manipulated them like the left does. It's because they're just looking for answers to problems that they can see, to problems that are obvious. You know, like how good is the economy? Because it doesn't really feel that good. Why is it so hard for me? But yet the White House is saying, and the Biden administration is saying the economy's great. And then they look for real answers. And this is what they get. They get why the economy is awful. And they understand it. They get why we're really in war with Russia. They get all this stuff. Like what really happened with the vaccines. Like people are starting to get it. I'm a true believer. I think Joe Biden is finished. So they're going to have to put someone else up because there's just no way. When you have a survey, when you have a poll that comes out that 74% of Americans think we're on the wrong track, that's huge. That is huge. I've never seen something like that before. So that means 3/4 of this country, which 3/4 of this country can never agree on anything. 3/4, 74% agree that this country's on the wrong track. Well, guess what, folks? It's Joe Biden that's been driving this boat. So it's like people are not stupid. The American people are not stupid. Maybe very gullible and easily manipulated, but not stupid. They know there's a problem with the economy. And so I just find it just absolutely bizarre and just very weird how this is the message they're going to run on, Bidenomics. And so, look, they're going to struggle really bad. And you want to know something else that I'm starting to notice? I was watching Rob Schneider on there with Jimmy Dore. Jimmy Dore, the comedian, he's got his own YouTube channel, does news media, kind of just like this, really middle of the road dude. I would probably say a Bernie bro. I'm pretty sure he's a Bernie Sanders supporter, and he kind of made his way. He's not even right leaning, I wouldn't say, but he's kind of in this area to where they kind of just forced everybody to the right. Anybody that questions this madness, anybody that says anything, that goes against the narrative, they just throw them to the right. They're like, oh, you must be a MAGA extremist, a right-winger. It's like, no, I'm just asking simple questions like, if the vaccine works, then why are people still getting COVID? Like, if the vaccine works, then why are you worried that I'm vaccinated or not? Like questions like that. Like, you got to question everything. Like, are vaccines related to autism? I don't know. But then when you see that the rates in autism have spiked, since we started giving vaccines to all these kids, not just the COVID vaccine, but all the other, plethora of vaccines that we give children now, you ask the question, like, could this be linked? Could these be correlated to autism? No, what are you, some kind of anti-vaxxer, right-winger, MAGA extremist, domestic terrorist? Get out of here. And so I was watching a episode of Jimmy Dore. He had Rob Schneider on a show. Rob Schneider's kind of a Bernie guy too, a liberal. I wouldn't say leftist, but definitely a Democrat. And he endorsed Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And this is what he had to say. He was talking about he's pushing back against this wokeness stuff that we're all experiencing right now. And this is what he had to say.
I was onto the vaccine, stuff early because they came after me for believing parents who said their child was fine and then wasn't after a series of 8 to 11 doses of a vaccine from a wellness visit. Interestingly, people should look this up, that during COVID, when people did not go to see their pediatrician to see the mortality for infants, we're 37th in infant mortality. Yes. We're one above Bolivia and one above Nigeria, one below Bolivia for first day infant deaths. And that the baby SIDS had dropped off during this time. So that's an interesting statistic that did not get enough attention. But so, when you say there's a direct correlation, causation, correlation, I think that's all crap. I think you have to look at all of it, and we have to be able to live in a society where you question everything.
Yeah, so again, Rob Schneider got, I would say, he got canceled. He was part of this cancel culture, and he talks about it in this episode, where he did a State Farm commercial doing one of his old SNL characters, and also did a commercial was doing work for an organization that dealt with injured children. And a lot of the people in that organization had children that were injured from vaccines. And so when the leftists found out that he was working with that organization, the tentacles of power reached out and canceled his State Farm commercial. And so he was canceled ever since. Same thing with RFK Jr. with these vaccines. He started asking questions about this vaccine and the correlation between everything, and started looking into the data, just like all of us did. All of us. Like with the mask mandates. 2-3 weeks into this virus, 2 or 3 weeks into the pandemic, like, we all understood that masks were not doing anything. And when you started looking at the data, like, okay, so the virus is 2 microns, and a mask, a surgical mask, can only stop up to 5 microns. So doesn't that mean, like, it's smaller? So that means it's smaller. So that means it's going to go through the pores of the mask. And so what are masks other than, nothing? Show. It was all show. It was a show of fear. It was just to show fear. It was just to show, like, to be like you were supporting the country, and it has still stayed there like that. Now you have the leftists wearing masks just to send a message. They'll wear a surgical mask, and they'll put BLM mask over the front of the surgical mask. They literally wear it for virtue signaling. And that's exactly what was happening. And so after 3 weeks of that, you start asking these questions, and then somehow you're some kind of right-wing anti-masker. You guys remember the hell they put the people through with these freaking masks? And then you start looking into the science, and it's like, wait a minute. So they're comparing this to throwing marbles at a chain-link fence. That's essentially how effective a mask is against an aerosolized virus. You're like, well, that doesn't make sense. But you couldn't even say that. Like, you literally were getting banned on Twitter, Facebook. You were called a right-wing extremist domestic terrorist for saying that you wanted to kill grandma and grandpa. Like, you were a people killer, a murderer, if you didn't wear a mask. And so Rob Schneider was one of these people asking these types of questions, and they canceled his ass. And so why did I play that clip? Because I'm starting to see a pattern, folks. I'm starting to see a pattern. The people that were really, really, like, anti-Trump, anti-MAGA, anti-Republican, and anti-right, they're really starting to realize that during the Trump administration, and like I said, stark contrast, this administration versus the last, they're starting to realize how awful cancel culture is. But they never noticed it before. They never noticed it. And so now that Trump is gone, all these people are really starting to, because revolutionaries eat themselves, folks. Like, they'll start to attack themselves, and so it's turning on itself. The situation happening with the left, with the Democrat Party, it's unsustainable. The ideology is unsustainable. They cannot continue on like this. You cannot object reality and fundamental truth forever. Like, eventually it's all gonna, you're gonna fall on your ass. And people are going to be like, okay, no, there is a man and there is a woman, and no, a man cannot be a woman and a woman cannot be a man, and no, a man cannot get pregnant. So people are going to start getting sick of the lies and sick of the games and the narratives. And Rob Schneider was one of them. And then finally, when he came out and started questioning it, they canceled his ass. He's like, wait a minute. So I'm being called a right-winger now. Oh, so now I know what Donald Trump feels like. Now I know how conservatives feel like. Now I know how Republicans feel like, that we're getting canceled, that we're getting banned and silenced and censored and getting their accounts removed and abolished and getting kicked off of YouTube. So now these people are starting to see, and Rob Schneider is not the only one I noticed this pattern with. There was also a Roger Waters audio clip that I played a couple episodes ago. See what I mean? I'm starting to see a pattern here. Roger Waters comes out and says, why are they canceling Roger Waters? Roger Waters is a staunch anti-Trumper. He hated Trump. He hated Republicans. He hated conservatives. But now he's asking the question, like, why am I being canceled? This cancel culture sucks. And I'm not saying anybody that realizes cancel culture sucks is going to vote for Donald Trump. I'm just saying they're coming back to reality. They're starting to see the fundamental truth that we've all been saying for a long time. Like, it hasn't left us. Like, to me, I knew censorship was bad all along. Cancel culture was awful. But these people didn't. They supported it because it went against Donald Trump. They supported it because of Donald Trump. Everything they supported, they had to do this mental gymnastics in order for them to believe that Donald Trump was Hitler or Pol Pot. So not just Roger Waters, but in that same audio clip, it was him and Gene Simmons. They were going after one another about Israel. Roger Waters is anti-Israel. I wouldn't say anti-Semite, but he's definitely anti-Israel. And Gene Simmons is Jewish, from Jewish descent. His parents or grandparents were in the Holocaust. And so Gene Simmons is a staunch Trump hater, hated Donald Trump. But there's one thing that he said that I noticed, and like I said, I'm seeing a pattern here. There's one thing he said that I noticed. Donald Trump was Israel's best friend. There was never a bigger supporter for Israel than Donald Trump. He did more for Israel and the Jewish people than any other president in history. And so even Gene Simmons in that interview said that Donald Trump would win in 2024. And so I'm starting to see a pattern here, but Gene Simmons hated Donald Trump. He hated him to us on a cellular level. But these people are starting to realize that this hatred that they had for him was all just nonsense. There was no reason behind it. Because when you really start to pull back the layers of the onion, you really start getting to the core of the problems, Donald Trump, there was no reason for people to hate Donald Trump. Especially people that are pro-Israel, and especially people that hate cancel culture like Rob Schneider and Roger Waters. And so I'm really, really starting to see a pattern here, and this is something that I've been noticing for a long time. And not a long time, but I would say the last year coming on that. And another thing you have to think of, I know it's, anecdotal, and it probably doesn't mean much, but when you look around, do you see any Biden stickers anymore? Do you see any Biden signs? Do you see anything of anybody supporting Joe Biden? Yeah, maybe one or two. I haven't seen one in months. And so that means, because during the election there was a ton of them. So that means that millions of people went out to their car and scraped off their Biden-Harris bumper sticker off the back of their car. These are the people that won't be voting for Joe Biden again. I'm not saying they'll vote for Donald Trump, but they won't be voting for Joe Biden. And Donald Trump only lost 42,000. He lost by 42,000 votes in like 3 or 4 different states. If you want to say, if I'm just saying, like, in reality, he lost. We all know that election was not legit. It was a messed up election. There was something wacky about that election, and nobody can prove or deny that election was legit. Okay? I mean, you just can't. I know they lie and say it was the most secure election in history, but you just can't. Again, you're denying reality. Okay? Denying reality. To sit there and say that election was the most secure election in U.S. history is just asinine. It's ridiculous to say stuff like that, but this is the stuff you got to believe in order to be on the left. In order to hate Donald Trump, you have to believe insane, irrational things. And so I'm seeing the pattern of people really starting to wake up, comparing and contrasting Donald Trump versus Joe Biden. These people have no reason to fear Donald Trump. It's the Washington establishment swamp that fears Donald Trump. And when you have people like Liz Cheney and Chris Christie and all these other politicians coming out and saying that Donald Trump's the most scariest thing to them that they've ever experienced in their life, then that tells me, ladies and gentlemen, that the enemy of my enemy is my friend. There's a reason why these politicians are scared of Donald Trump, and I'm sorry, but anything a politician tells you, you need to do the opposite. We have reached epic levels of corruption in our government right now. We've never seen anything like this before. We've never seen relationships like this between the media, a political party, and the Justice Department and the White House. We've never seen this before. We've never seen a weaponized government in this country before like this. We are staring at totalitarianism right in the face. We are staring at it right in the face. And you have a large portion of the population that's really, really starting to see it. You really do. When you have people that hate Donald Trump but are actually coming out and saying, yeah, maybe he wasn't so bad because, you know what, this cancel culture thing does suck. Or they're coming out and saying, yeah, maybe he wasn't so bad because, you know, he was Israel's best friend. They're starting to really understand what is happening here. And at 42,000 votes, I'm sorry, but I think Donald Trump's list of voters has grown more than just 42,000 people. And so this is why the media, or this is why the establishment, this corrupt system, this system that we all know is there, even the Trump haters know that the government's corrupt. Because when I was a Democrat, we said it was corrupt all the time. We know that there's a system here, and this system is designed specifically to keep us down and keep them up. They're making the millions and billions while they're throwing us breadcrumbs, keeping us at work just enough to pay taxes, not to get any better, only to get worse. It is a system, folks. It really is. And all these people at the upper echelons and the bureaucracy pulling the strings in our government, not elected officials, but people that have been in our government administration through administration through administration. These unelected people that really are the most powerful people in our government. These are the people that are bringing this country to its knees right now. While they're making millions off, speaking fees and skimming money off the top. Did you guys know? I'm going to read an article next episode. Did you guys know that the United States lost $200 billion in fraud during COVID? $200 billion, folks, in COVID spending during the pandemic. Gone to fraud. This is what I'm talking about. We have a system that is specifically, that exists specifically to keep us where we're at. This system knows that if the American people were to combine forces and stop fighting over race and stop fighting over gender, combine forces, they know their asses would be grass. They know that they would no longer be needed. And that is why they want to continue to divide the people, whether it's through race or gender, political party, whatever it is. They'll keep the people divided. That's what they do. But we've all said this for as long as I can remember, that the people are stronger when we're unified. That a united we stand, a divided we fall. That we all know is true. And so it's unfortunate that these corrupt politicians have so much sway over the minds of just regular American people. These politicians that have nothing to do, nothing in common with regular Americans. These politicians, these millionaires and billionaires have nothing but disdain for regular American working class people and lower class people. A middle class that's getting smaller and smaller, and a lower class that's getting bigger and bigger. And so this is why I say the level of propaganda that's getting ready to happen to this country in order to get Joe Biden across the finish line so that the Washington establishment can retain its power and retain their hands on the levers of power is going to be astronomical. And all I ask is that people just pull their head out of their asses, pull their head out of the sand, open their eyes, and pay attention. Okay? Listen to every other media you can. Do not listen to legacy media. The mainstream media is in the bag. They are the same entity. the media and the government and the Democrat Party, and I'm sorry, but the establishment rhinos, the establishment Republican Party, all of these people exist to keep us in our place. They're all in a club. They're all in their club, and we're not invited. And so I think the sooner the people realize that, the sooner we can get our country back. But until people start coming together and just putting the stupid stuff to the side, like, for now, anyways, until we get our country back, we can actually make and have real democracy and real elections and real discussions about gun control and abortion and the Constitution. But this whole game that they're playing us for now, this Washington system, this is nonsense. We need to come together, unify, and get our country back. And then we could start talking about the important stuff. So that's all I got for today's show. I didn't have a whole lot of audio to play for you today. We're going to be talking about a lot of crazy stuff. We're going to be talking about the Trump indictment. We're going to be talking probably more about the Biden corruption in the next thing. I got a whole list of stuff to talk about. Is Biden getting paid to destroy our energy sector? So there was phone calls that were released of Joe Biden talking to Chinese Communist Party members. So is Biden getting paid to destroy our energy sector? So you have a lot of people talking and a lot of evidence pointing towards Joe Biden has been compromised from day one and has been compromised by China. I'm sure they got a file 6 inches thick of all the stuff that they're blackmailing Joe Biden for. And it makes you wonder, like, this entire energy thing, this energy sector going to green energy, all this does is benefit China because all the panels come from China, all the windmills come from China, all the lithium comes from China, the batteries, the technology, all this stuff comes from China. So it makes you wonder, is this the Biden's plan? Was this the investment China made that's going to put them over the top, that's going to put them in the number one spot? I don't know. We're going to be talking about that. So, we're going to talk about the WhatsApp messages from Hunter Biden. That's actually a pretty big deal because that is the smoking gun of this entire investigation. And so Republicans need to get down and dirty. I'm sorry, but Republicans need to take off the damn gloves and start tagging these people. I want subpoenas. I want phone records. I want impeachment hearings. I want special counsels. I want things done like yesterday. And so we're going to talk about these WhatsApp messages with Hunter Biden. I talked to you guys about the Rob Schneider thing and that pattern that I'm starting to see with a lot of stuff happening right now. And did you guys that Joe Biden already has 90% of the unions? 90% of all the unions have already endorsed Joe Biden. You don't think that's a little bit a little suspicious? It's because the entire system's corrupted, ladies and gentlemen, corrupted. The union leaders endorse Joe Biden because the union leaders are getting kickbacks from corrupt deals and corrupt bills that they passed. Like I said, it's all a system. It's one giant club, and you're not invited. And so Joe Biden already has the teachers' unions, even though the teachers' union is failing our students miserably. We talked about that on last episode. The absolute carnage the lockdowns did to the students, and not just the lockdowns, but the unions in general. The academics, the Department of Education in general has done astronomical damage to the academics of our children. And so we have a 2.33% increase in educational spending, but yet the reading and math scores are the lowest on record. So I don't know, like don't people wonder why every single 90% of the unions support Joe Biden? It's because it's all corrupted, dude. So I also wanted to get into, I'm researching this right now, so I don't know if I'm going to talk about it on the next episode. So I want to talk about the China Initiative and what is the motive behind the China Initiative and who was behind canceling that investigation. Essentially, yeah, we're going to talk a lot about government corruption in next episode because there is a whole lot of corruption happening, folks, right in broad daylight. And I'm sorry, but I really want to nail down when all this corruption started. Like, was it during the Eisenhower days? Was it before World War II? Was it during World War I want to know when all this rampant, vile corruption started happening in our country, because This country is nothing that the founders intended. Nothing. We are so far off track from what the founders intended for this country. It's not even funny. And it's not like it's been done by just one party. We're here because of the government. The government and Congress and the Republicans and Democrats have brought us here. Okay? Not the people. But unfortunately, the people have just had their feet kicked up for so long that the government has just been infected with this corruption, man. It's too corrupted. It's too corrupted. It has too much money. You know, when you have 80% of our yearly spending going to corruption, that's a big freaking deal, man. And then not only that, but billions going to Ukraine, but we can't ask where it's going. We can't ask for receipts or any of these programs that haven't had any sunsets, which means all these programs, there's like 1,500 government programs that are being funded, mandatory funding, which means they have to be funded, like Medicare and Social Security. There's like 1,500 programs. I mean, and nobody's even looking at them to see if they can be canceled or to see if they're even successful or not. So again, we got a lot of stuff to get into. I didn't get into it today. I just wanted to give you my opinion on the pattern that I'm starting to see when I seen this Rob Schneider video on with Jimmy Dore, and I found it pretty interesting. And I was just speaking my mind to you guys. I didn't really have anything prepped, but I just wanted to give you guys what I thought and the pattern that I'm starting to see. And if you're noticing the pattern too, let me know. Reach out to me. You can get a hold of me at steventorielloshow@gmail.com. And let me know if you're starting to see the same pattern. How are you feeling right now about, the current things that are happening? How do you feel about, Joe Biden? How do you feel about Donald Trump as president? Let me know what you think. How do you feel about Ron DeSantis? Anything you want to talk about, you let me know. If you need any of the statistics or want any of the research material, I'm going to leave them in my podcast description, and so you can go back and read any of the stats that I leave. I didn't read any articles in this episode. I maybe read some stats off a couple things, but I'll leave that in the podcast description, so you guys can take a look at it. And again, you can get a hold of me at steventorielloshow@gmail.com. And I would really appreciate it if you shared the show with your friends and family, just to get them thinking. All you have to do is get people to think, and once they start thinking, then they'll start coming to rational conclusions about things. And, it definitely helps. So if you could do that, I'd really appreciate it. Also, leave a review. And yeah, as always, I want you guys to have a great day. Have a great week. God bless you. And God bless America. You guys have a good day. Bye-bye.